Children are the future of every country, its future leaders and its future workers. But in the period between their infancy and their school years, there are big questions about how to look after them and help them develop. It's a major dilemma for many parents and many governments. The UK has some of the most expensive childcare in the world, but the government has just announced a major expansion of funding. Some say it still doesn't go far enough, nor does it address some of the trickiest questions.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Organising childcare can be a brain teaser. Like many British families, the John Smiths use a mix of solutions. Mum Zara has every other Monday off, and when both parents are at work, the grandparents help out. Without them, the couple says, full-time childcare for 4-year-old Teo and 1-year-old Nala would be too expensive.
If we were to put Nala in nursery, double what she's doing now, we would be paying over £1,000 a month just for her nursery. So that would be like the majority of my salary. It would be absolutely not worth me going back to work because I would be breaking even. And then I'd also be losing out on the time with the kids.
Snack, you want a snack?
On average, childcare in the UK accounts for 29% of a couple's income. That's the figure after government support. Parents are given 15 hours of subsidised childcare for 3- and 4-year-olds, which goes up to 30 hours if both parents work. The government's new budget is expanding the 15 hours to 2-year-olds from next April and to 9-month-olds from next September. A year later, all eligible children under 5 would get 30 hours. But that still falls well short of a working week, and nurseries are cautious about the changes. They say the money doesn't cover the growing costs of providing the childcare. Government funding hasn't kept up with energy and labour costs, which have risen with inflation. The subsidies will increase, but not enough to make up the difference. Some 5,400 early years providers closed last year, leaving families with even fewer options. More than half of those still open are operating at a loss.
Our highest expense is the staff. But the total of staff, including our administrator, is something like, for all of us, and there's 7 of us, it's about £60,000 a year for all of us. We're on embarrassing wages, and sadly, we are able to continue with this to a certain extent because our partners or our situations mean that we can actually afford to receive this lowly wage.
But not everyone can. Many childcare providers are leaving the profession, and recruitment is a major challenge.
At the rate we're going now, probably maximum 3 years before we have to close, which actually breaks my heart.
As nurseries close, families explore other options like childminders, which can be cheaper. They look after children in their own homes instead of at a dedicated facility, but they still require qualifications and are subject to inspections. Rachel Carroll saw a major gap in the market and started a company to fill it.
The core problem is a lack of supply, and in the case of what we do, home nursery, childminders, in about 20 years ago there were almost 80,000 of these in the UK. Now there's only just over 20,000 of these. So the numbers of them have just absolutely plummeted. Why has that happened? It's been because of a lack of government support.
The government has offered a one-off payment to new childminders, but critics say that doesn't go far enough, and they accuse the budget of helping generate demand more than supply. The government's focus in its latest budget was getting people back into work, but experts say there isn't enough of an emphasis on the quality of childcare, and that comes down to the training and pay of those providing it. It's a particular issue in poorer parts of the country.
In areas of high deprivation, where there's a lot of poverty, the main reason to send your child to childcare isn't necessarily that you going back to work. It's because it's in the best interest of that child to go to high quality preschool education, and it will help that child's outcomes. And again, I don't think that's been looked at.
The government says it's aiming to get women back on the career track. They're leaving their jobs at a faster rate than any time since 1994, and their earnings potential falls drastically after they have children. Business lobby groups have welcomed the expanded childcare offering, which they say will help boost employment. And researchers point to an economic benefit of the added investment.
But we'd expect over the longer term that there's quite significant returns even in the first few years of investing in a much more serious offer for parents. And that's because we'd see this growth across our wider economy. So more women that aren't being pushed to drop out of the workforce, more skills and talent that are retained across our industries, across the UK. And then those parents are also obviously taxpayers.
The government has dedicated an additional $5 billion to childcare. Campaigners say more than double that could be needed to meet the new pledges. But as well as spending more, officials say the existing money needs to be spent better.
We've heard concerns about the way in which the tax-free childcare and the childcare through universal credit are functioning, and some of the barriers that there are to parents in being able to take those up. And so those are things where the government is putting substantial money into, through either the benefit system or the taxation system, substantial money into trying to support parents, but the take-up has not been as high as expected. So if we can get those working better and functioning better, that would potentially provide a big part of the solution.
The extra childcare funding doesn't come into effect until next year. And in the meantime, Zara John Smith's employer is asking workers to return to the office full time. She says the government should encourage companies to allow flexible working.
Well, it just means I'm going to have a lot less quality time with the kids, and I'm going to be physically and emotionally exhausted, you know? So, in order to do our jobs, it's so much better to be like refreshed mentally, and, commuting just absolutely exhausts you.
2 years of rising inflation have brought the system to a pinch point. Childcare is expected to be a significant issue for voters at the next general election. The vote will be a major test of whether the government has done enough to piece together the fragmented childcare system to create one coherent picture.
Early childhood educators say the industry is in crisis. They're demanding a 25% pay increase to address high staff turnover and burnout. Frustrated workers have been protesting and holding rallies right across the country, saying they are overworked and undervalued. The federal government has ordered a review into the sector, but for many, it's too late. 1, 2, 3, that's right! It's playtime at this childcare centre in Sydney, and these games are more than just fun.
Look in the mirror, what's this? Your ears, sharp up 2 ears?
They're about self-reflection, gaining skills and sparking creativity, something childhood educator Wendy Lin is passionate about.
In here, we teach them things like how to socialize in school, how to resolve conflict, interact with other kids, and just basically, something that you can't gain with the parents, can't really gain as much as the classroom setting.
High five!
Miss Lin has worked in early childcare for more than a decade and says attitudes about her career still need to change.
The way we play is slowly encourage him and just expose him and just teach him basically. What is that one? C. C, that is scribe. C. And what sound does C make? We have definitely more than babysitters. We cater for each individual. They have their own sets of understanding, belief, and we cater around them. We especially enjoy extending their knowledge and encourage them to grow, support them, whatever they need. We do more than just babysitting. It would be nice if we're recognized and the government invests in us a bit more, at least pay more attention to us. It would be nice to be valued.
Feeling undervalued has forced many in the childcare sector to flee. University of Queensland research shows that in Australian cities, 33% of early childhood educators leave after just 12 months. In remote locations, that figure is around 50%. Those who stay on say they face a constant struggle to make ends meet. It's prompted protests across the country, with workers walking off the job last year, demanding a sector overhaul to improve conditions and wages. And this year in New South Wales, the Workers' Union held a month-long rally pushing for a 25% pay rise.
For the first time in our history, resignation rates are now outstripping retirement rates. And the highest exit levels are amongst our early career teachers. Early career teachers are exiting at a rate not seen before. This crisis is caused by crippling workloads and uncompetitive salaries.
No matter what state of Australia you are in, the cost of living crisis and the downward pressure on wages means that we are losing essential services across this country. We are losing essential workers across this country. They are preferring to go to other professions, other jobs with less stress and more money.
Ready, steady, go!
The pay rate for childcare workers in Australia are decided by what's called the Children's Services Award. That sets the minimum amount an employer can pay you. On average, childcare work is paid around $18 an hour.
Most of my staff personally are paid above award, but it's still hard to keep them because people are trying to, leave the industry in troves. They're done. They're exhausted. We do want to pay our staff more. Everyone wants to pay the staff more, and I feel that we should try and do that. But for this to happen, the government will need to contribute more and fund some of this directly. We can't ask the parents to pay any more. Doing that means, an increase to the family pressures as they already are.
The federal government has flagged major childcare reforms and has ordered a Productivity Commission inquiry into the industry. It aims to make recommendations that will help reduce people leaving the workforce.
Some people would describe it in crisis, but I think there are long-standing issues in the early childhood education and care sector, issues that have been around for at least a decade, maybe more. They are related to workforce pressures. Well, we've got two things happening at the moment. One of them is a Productivity Commission review that looks at the entire sector, and the other one is an ACCC review that will look at pricing mechanisms in the sector and how that works. The Productivity Commission review and the ACCC review will shed light on is how do we get the market to operate better.
The final report will be provided to the government by June next year, but many centres say they need action now and are already struggling to cope with short staff supply. Experts say the first 5 years of a child's life is the most critical in terms of brain development and learning, so early childhood educators play a crucial role at this most pivotal time. At childcare centres, though, staff retention is essential. Psychologists in Australia warn that high staff turnover at centres can have a detrimental impact on the quality of care they can provide.
So this one is called You Matter.
Lisa Hamid recently moved to this Little Scribblers childcare centre for a better wage. She is a mother of 4 and has been in the industry for nearly 20 years.
There's probably been times where I've gone, okay, this is too much. But then, like I said, some days, like the next day I'll go in and something amazing will happen and I can pull myself out of it. You walk in, it's just, you see little happy faces everywhere, you've got cute little babies, like seriously, how could you want to go anywhere else for work? If we're giving them a nurturing, caring and, an actual like learning environment, we're setting them up for success.
She believes building the country's future begins here, and how these centres are run will have consequences for the next generation.
Here in the US, the childcare crisis poses a $122 billion economic threat due to lost wages, productivity and tax revenue. A recent study from the bipartisan Council for a Strong America found that nearly 1 in 4 parents were fired from their jobs last year because of a breakdown over childcare. And when it comes to families with disabled children, things are even worse. Not only do they face many barriers to care, but also job disruption, financial strain and stress. Doctors weren't sure if Layla Osonjuk would ever be able to play in the park with her sister. Mobility is one of the many challenges that she's overcome in her 13 years. She has a rare genetic disorder called Temple syndrome.
In the beginning, even at the hospital, she stayed in the NICU for 2.5 months. They weren't sure she would walk or talk, but as you can see, she walks and talks and does a lot of things.
That includes being a straight-A student.
I like school.
But finding a place at a school suited to her needs is just one of the countless obstacles and costs that Layla's family has faced in caring for her.
Financially, of course, it had massive implications, even though we had insurance and everything else. Sold our house at the time. You know, it's been, years of basically picking up the impact. But I mean, I think every family is impacted exponentially by having a kid with special needs.
That impact can be on parents' professional lives as well as their bank balances.
There's no way that I can put Layla in any programs, so it puts a lot of strain on myself and her mom as well. Her sister Sylvie, people can pick her up or we can put her on other programs. There are options, but when it comes to special need kids, there actually should be more options, not less.
Parents of disabled kids are 3 times more likely to suffer job disruptions than other parents, according to data from the National Survey of Children's Health. Paulette Harhealy is one of them. Both her children have special needs. So, alongside her job as a makeup artist, she's become a special education advocate.
There was 1 year my son missed 52 days of school because of busing issues. And I ended up losing an entire gig because of, I wasn't able to get there. And that resounds with a lot of different families, especially in our immigrant families that work 2 jobs just to keep food on the table.
Thanks for coming. Situations like these make the work of advocates like Sherelle Cruikshank even more vital. She runs Include NYC, a non-profit organisation helping disabled children and their families in New York City. She says the answer is more money to pay for more staff.
Funding is going to get you trained teachers, is going to improve the understaffed issue, because there is a lot of programs, especially as a result of the pandemic, that are understaffed and not even able to open and provide full services at this point. It's also going to help to pay the teachers appropriately. We need more seats where children with disabilities can sit at the table.
She argues that businesses should also ramp up support for working parents.
If there was more time available to parents that they weren't losing out on their pay, they would be able to play a stronger role in their child's life. If corporations spent more time investing in childcare just in general for their staff, they'd probably get a better return on their investment.
To start, every 3- and 4-year-old child gets access to free high-quality preschool.
That's a sentiment echoed by the Biden administration. President Biden came to office promising to fix the US childcare crisis, proposing hundreds of billions of dollars for programs. But he failed to gain support from the centrists in his party, and the legislation failed in Congress. So the White House has come up with another way to help, using legislation that it did enact, the CHIPS Act. That's the law aimed at boosting semiconductor manufacturing in the US. Now, any company who wants to build a new chip factory here and benefit from a slice of the billions of dollars in federal subsidies must guarantee affordable, high-quality childcare for its workers. That's companies like tech giant Intel, which is building a $20 billion chip-making campus in the US state of Ohio. But the Biden administration is concerned about who will operate it.
We're in a very tight labor market. We're about to create hundreds of thousands of jobs. We will not succeed without the trained workforce to meet this mission. It is time to get creative around how we train and place people into these jobs if we're going to be globally competitive.
Only about 3 in 10 US manufacturing workers are women. US Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo says the CHIPS Act will fail if the administration doesn't help companies change those numbers by improving childcare options to entice parents back into the workforce.
This is math. We need to open the pipeline to women.
Layla's father hopes there will be opportunities in her future too.
She's in 7th grade now, and she's a straight A student, by the way. The goal is for her to complete, go through 12th grade, high school, and then go to university as well. And yeah, I mean, I think she's on her own trajectory. I think she'll have her challenges the rest of her life. But, she has us and her younger sister to support her.
For now, though, there are Disney films to discuss.
What's your favourite show? Tell me and I'll see if I know it.
Moana.
Moana! Do you know any of the songs? Do you like listening to the music?
I like How Far I Go.
Layla has already come so far, and you wouldn't bet against her going much, much further, despite the challenges that she and her family continue to face.